About this, you're playing in the stadium you coached in against the old team that you coached for. It's just a lot of parallels for you in your career. What's it like to kind of have it all come to this point?
Honestly, I've did so. That's kind of got your full attention. So I haven't really thought about it, to be honest with you.
How much have you looked back at that Tennessee game and the game plan, and how what made it work in your eyes the most?
I think our players just really executed, did a great job. I thought Will played really well, within the confines of the offense and threw the ball very accurately. What he's done in almost every game we played this year. So I thought our running backs really contributed well. I thought the offensive line was really cohesive in that thing, and obviously our receivers made some big time plays. So I think it was every position was really contributed to that win over Tennessee.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Chip, in the first game against Oregon, you guys didn't get any first downs running the ball in the second half. What do you think went wrong there, and how do you fix that this time around?
You go through all that game and go through plays and what you were doing, and we got into a little bit more of a throw situation a couple times there. We had a backed up situation coming out, and moved the ball pretty well out of that, but then missed on a key third down, had a bad snap, and didn't handle it very well. And I think it was more of self-inflicted wounds on our side than those are things that I think are correctable when you start to look at the tape and kind of how you figure that out. So that's part of the process. You get to play a team twice. That's rare in college football that you get to play a team twice. So you've got a game against them, and they also have a game against you. So they're looking at the same exact thing. So you look at that game, but there's also, I think that was the sixth game of the year. There was a lot of games since then. They've done some different things defensively since that game, up until the game against Penn State a couple weeks ago in their last game. So I don't know how similar the two games will end up playing out, to be honest with you.
How confident do you feel that you guys were able to find something in the run game against Tennessee that can now translate over to this game?
Yeah, I think every game is different. So I think you don't look at, hey, we did this against Tennessee, so we'll do this against our next opponents. I think it's always the matchups and the individual matchups, our O-line versus their D-line, which I think is one of the best D-lines in the country. I think Harmon and Caldwell inside, having Birch back. Birch didn't play against us in the first game, so what impact will he have, as an edge player, because he's a really, really good football player. So, I don't think you look at the game you played the week before against a different opponent and say, hey, this matches to where we go here. It's what do we got to do to beat a really good Oregon team.
Stefan Kreisnick, Cleveland.com.
What have you thought of the way Devin Brown has kind of stayed involved and just the way in general he's handled the situation that he's in and remained at Ohio State throughout this run?
Yeah, I think it says a lot about Dev's character. He loves it here. He loves his teammates. He loves being a Buckeye. And so I understand it. The quarterback position is kind of unique when it comes to football in terms of, kind of how you fit in and where they are, and everybody kind of picking different places to play. Where can I play if I go to this place? And those situations. But it tells you everything about Devin. He hasn't taken any visits. He's really focused 100% on Tennessee and now 100% on Oregon. And what can he do to help his teammates win this football game?
What do you feel he's kind of added to the room as a whole, throughout this season?
Oh, he's been great. I think because he's got the most experience in that room. Will got here in last January, so did Julian and Air. And then Lincoln had only been here a year, so Devin is kind of the older player in the room. And when we talk about things that, they did a year ago or 2 years ago, he can kind of give his 2 cents on that, and he's done a great job leading that group.
Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Chip, obviously going into the Tennessee game, there was a lot of emotion, frustration. You guys talked about after the game, kind of using that Michigan loss. You go out on the field, there's Tennessee fans in the stands. How do you take a similar mentality into a game like this when maybe the outside noise isn't quite what it was for 3 weeks leading into that first round?
Yeah, I think our players are intrinsically motivated to be successful, and they have one goal, and that's to win the whole thing. And the only way you can win the whole thing is to win game 2. So, that's been their intention since the Tennessee game was over. It's been what do we got to do next? And I think it's all your attention's on. Obviously, they're the number 1 seed that you're playing. So. And they're the 1 seed for a reason. They're the only undefeated team in college football. So, that gets your attention right away. So you don't have to muster up any type of other motivation in terms of what did people say about us. So that'll motivate us even more. It's a really good football team. Turn on the tape, and they're going to challenge us. And our guys are really excited about that challenge.
And you mentioned maybe not focusing so much on that last game because of what's happened since then. Do you review that anymore?
Oh,
or is
yeah.
it just-
I mean, we watch them all. So we've watched all 13 games they played this year. So it's not like we just watched the game we played against them and then watch anything else. I think you have to take a look at everything that they've done over the 13 games and go through it. But their lineup will be different. Like I said earlier, Birch didn't play against us the last time we played, but he has played since then, and he's a really, really good football player. So there's some changes that they've made since then. I think each team is different from when the last time we played each other. You know, there's been a growth on both sides from both teams, so I think that's part of it. But you look at all 13 games they played this year.
Tony Girdman, Buckeye Huddle.
After you got here, do you remember the first time that Jeremiah Smith made you just say like, wow?
He's done it a lot.
Like the first time.
I don't really remember the first time. I think it was during one of the workout sessions, you know, with Coach Mick and just watching them run and jump and do some different things. And you could just see his sheer athleticism, you know, for a guy that big, to be able to run and jump the way he can run and jump was, you know, really the kind of the first thing that caught my eye.
Do you remember the last time he surprised you?
What's that?
The last time he surprised you? Because it seems like.
Yeah, yesterday when he had his Grinch cleats on in practice, that kind of surprised me. But I liked it. It was a little Christmas flair, so.
Austin Ward, the podcast.
Chip, what did you guys think of the rotation on the guards last week?
I thought all three of those guys did a really nice job, and I think it's, you know, to develop depth late in the season like we have is critical. I thought Luke played really well, but I think when you can kind of keep some guys fresh, you know, most teams defensively, Tennessee being one, our team being one, Oregon being one, rotate defensive linemen. Very rarely are you rotating offensive linemen. So to have three really capable guys inside that can spell each other, I think helps keep them fresh a little bit. So, you know, I know Justin and Coach have talked about it. We'll continue to play all three of those guys, and I think it makes all three of those guys better players.
Yeah, you said it's not that common. We don't see it very often. Is that a difficult thing for a coaching staff to do and institute? Like, it just goes against like the notion that you want chemistry and cohesion and all the rest of that. Like, was it a difficult step for you guys to take that?
No, I think it's a credit to those guys, and I think they've all earned it. So I think that's the one thing about it. It's a meritocracy here. If you merit playing time, you get playing time, and all three of those guys have worked really hard at it. So, you know, the more depth you can have is better, and that's a positive. You know, as you're getting in here, as we talk about it, it's a 16, 17 game season to win the whole thing, and so your depth is going to be tested. Our depth obviously has been tested in the offensive line, losing Jimmy and losing Seth. So, but to have Luke step up the way he stepped up is a huge deal for us.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette.
Jelani's a guy, obviously, every time somebody talks about his consistency, people talk about he's playing consistency with the talents. He's playing better and better, so he's getting a bigger and bigger role. He had a good block and touchdown. What have you seen from Jelani that's just allowed him to grow on the field and kind of find that consistency and that trust within the offense?
Yeah, I'm a big Galani fan. I think he's a tremendous football player. He works his tail off, and you can see him develop. He's certainly gotten better each week this season, and it continues to develop. He's a big, tall, rangy target, but he's a physical football player. You know, and when you look at him, you see his length and you see his height, and you say, wow, you know, that's impressive. But then you watch his toughness. You know, I think on the one play, Will took off for a first down and fell forward, but when he hit the ground, the ball popped out. And then Tennessee picked it up, and he laid a hit on the Tennessee defender that picked the ball up. But there's an innate toughness to Galani that any football person just kind of admires from him. So, you know, combining that athleticism with that toughness, it's a pretty good package.
Don Sperry, WSYX. WBNS.
Coach, obviously, these are kind of uncharted waters. You guys knew going in that depth would be important, but this will be your 14th game. From a fatigue standpoint and whatever, because they've never played this many games before. How are you guys handling all that?
I think there's a little bit of a break. You know, there was a break between the last game of our season and then the first round of the playoffs, and then I don't know if it's 10 or 12 days between round one and round two here in the quarterfinals. And then I think it's not a week-to-week thing, you know, similar to like it is in the NFL. There's a little bit of a break in there. So you just have to manage it the way you can manage it. But the other teams you're playing are going through the same exact thing. So it's not like one team's at a bigger advantage, you know. So I know Oregon had last week off, but they did play in a championship game, you know, the week before that. So they didn't have the week off after the end of the season. So it's just how it is, and it is going to be a battle of attrition when you get down to the end. I know like Georgia's lost their quarterback in their championship game, so that's just part of what everybody has to deal with. Everybody's dealing with injuries and losing key guys at key positions, but it's about guys stepping up and running with it when they can. So, and there's no better model than Cardell Jones and what he did when the last time this team won a national championship is, he started off the season at 3, but then he was the quarterback that led them to the championship game. So we talk to our players about that a lot, and then it's when your time comes, are you ready when your time comes? And if it is, then let's go.
You want to get on a roll, momentum is important. Do you feel the momentum coming out of that Tennessee game, and do you hope it continues now?
You do hope it continues, and I think our players are in a good mindset right now. I think we're still I know today, I think you said, Jerry, is Saturday, right, Jerry?
Yes.
It's Wednesday in our world, so that's kind of how we approach it. So, we had a good Monday and a good Tuesday, so now it's really just having a good Wednesday and concentrating fully on what we can do today to get better for this game that's coming up in a couple days.
Galani Stitz, WSYX.
It's been a few months and both teams have evolved, and you mentioned Oregon getting Birch back.
Mhm.
What have you noticed in the differences in Oregon's defense since the last time you played them?
Yeah, I think some of the personnel has changed a little bit, and I think some of the players that did step up, when Birch went down, have really played well. Mateo's got 10.5 sacks and has been has been a force on the edge. And I think all of those guys have grown as a group, just like our guys have grown as a group. So, it'll be a different game than it was the last time, just because of the maturity in both teams.
And Will had a really good game against Oregon, but coming off arguably maybe his best game as a Buckeye. How have you seen him approach this week?
He's been the same. That's the one thing I love about Will is his consistency and his approach on a daily basis. Is every Monday is the same, the same preparation in terms of film study and what we talk about. What's Tuesday look like? What's Wednesday look like? What's Thursday look like? And his growth during the week. So I think it's that consistent approach that you really kind of admire from him. There's nothing looking forward. Make the proper corrections on a Sunday after a game, whether it's a win or a loss, and then move on to the next opponent. And that's the way I think he's approached it since the first game of the year.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
This is more on the rotation. With Austin, I guess his ability to be able to do that in the same game. Donovan Jackson sometimes talked about the difference between left brain, right brain. So just him being able to do that in the same game, and did he grade out as a champion in that game? Just can you evaluate his performance on both sides?
Yeah, and I think you make a great point. There's a big difference between playing on the right side and playing on the left side, and I don't know if people really truly realize that. It's a different deal. There's a big difference between being a guard and being a tackle. How you see things and what you see. You see different looks. You're facing different players. You're using different footwork. On the right side, the right hand's down and the right foot's back. On the left side, the left hand's down and the left hand's back. So that sounds easy, but to drill and to be a great offensive lineman, the technique and the repetitions are huge, and to have to be able to do it both ways within a game itself is a credit to Austin. And I think that flexibility allows us to kind of move those 3 guys around, because somebody has to swing if you're going to do that. So I think he's done a really good job, and I think since the beginning of the year he's always kind of been that guy that started off a little bit early in the year on the right side, then stepped in on the left side when Donnie was down for a while there, but then to be able to fill and go over to the other side is a really big deal.
And there was a way you guys were running the ball, obviously a million different injuries on the offensive line. Just having the time between the last time you guys played and when you guys played on Saturday to maybe revamp whatever you guys need to revamp to fit it to what the guys are now. Could you do that during the season when you're playing week to week while also trying to mitigate all the losses you're having on the offensive line?
Yeah, a little bit. And I think a lot of times your game plan specific in the run game really is dictated by who your opponent is and how they play and how they deploy. What type of spacing do they use up front, and then what plays are better against that spacing. And then breaking down the individual play of the individual guys. Where is their strength? Is it the inside guys? Is it the outside guys? How do they handle certain plays? So there's certain plays that are better against different teams. So there's always adjustments that go on from a week-to-week basis from that standpoint.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Chip, since Will has come back at tight end, what has he given you guys that maybe you guys were missing in the time that he missed?
Yeah, just having him back. We actually lost him in this game, and then to come back, I think he's a big, strong body. He can be a tight end, an inline tight end that can block defensive ends, block the C gap, gives you that matchup in there against, and we're going to need it this week because the ends we're facing are really, really good. But given a guy that can play in line up as basically the sixth offensive lineman and can be able to compete like that, he's done a really nice job, and I think it just added more depth and given us another weapon to use on the offensive side.
You guys used the tight ends pretty well against Tennessee, and then I think G had a big, or Galani had a big catch against Penn State. You guys used G against Oregon. Terrence Ferguson was pretty good against you guys. What is it about big games? You've been a play clock a long time that makes you guys get the tight end more involved? It seems like in a big game, offenses just target tight ends.
Yeah, I mean, the tight ends are usually deployed towards the middle of the field. It's a shorter throw for the quarterback. The tight ends are usually bigger targets. They have a bigger catch radius just because of the size of the tight ends and what they can do. Sometimes it becomes a matchup game with tight ends. How do they match up against the linebackers? If they're a little bit more athletic than the linebackers, then do you put a DB on them? But if you put a DB on them, maybe they're bigger than a DB. So that becomes kind of the game within a game when you're trying to control the middle of the field. It's like having a really good slot receiver, and we do in a Mecca that can control the middle of the field. But they have a really good tight end. Watching them on tape that does a great job of helping control the middle of the field, and he's really a safety valve for the quarterback, knowing that, hey, I got a big guy somewhere in the middle of the field. It's a shorter throw. They don't have to drive the ball to the sideline to get the ball to him, but you can take advantage of some of that spacing and use those guys. But I think it's the same thing, the teams that are really successful in the NFL, the Chiefs and people like that, and the Niners with Kittle, having that kind of security blanket in the middle of the field is a big deal for a quarterback.
Folks, this press conference is being zoomed and streamed around the world on the World Wide Web. We're going to go to a couple of those on Zoom right now. Question from Andreas Soto from the Los Angeles Times. Andreas?
Coach, you are returning to the stadium that you called home for the past 6 years. Does that add anything to this game for you, or is it just kind of business as usual?
Got to get more sunscreen looking at the weather report because we haven't seen the sun in a while out here in Columbus. But I think more the game itself and the Rose Bowl itself, is it's such an iconic place and such a special place to play. To be at that 2:00 kickoff on the West Coast on January 1st it's special, and so I'm excited to be an opportunity to coach in another Rose Bowl. I think that's going to be really special.
We're going to stick.
And how would you say you've grown over the past year?
Say that again.
How would you say you've grown over the past year, as a coach and as a person?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you're a product of your environment, so to be able to be around this group, the players and obviously this coaching staff here has to make anybody better. So I think the fact that I got a chance to spend time with this group is a truly special time. And I had a great time when I was at UCLA. I had a great staff and an unbelievable group of players there too. So I think just really fortunate with everybody that I've got a chance to be around the last 7 years.
Going to move on to Jordan Mendoza, USA Today.
Hey, Coach. You at one point almost had Dylan Gabriel as your quarterback at UCLA, so clearly that you have a connection with him. What was it about him that wanted you to have him as a quarterback, and what can you say about just the type of quarterback and person that he is?
Yeah, I'm not surprised at the success Dylan has had. You could see it when he was at Mililani in Hawaii in high school, and then watching what he did at Central Florida. Didn't surprise me the success he had at Oklahoma, nor the success he's had at Oregon. He's extremely accurate. I think he's really calm. There's a poise about him that I think is, kind of special for the quarterback position. Doesn't seem to get rattled too much. Really has a true understanding of what they want to get accomplished there, and is also really athletic. So that if you do take away some of his options from a throw standpoint, he can beat you with his legs. So I think he's the complete package and one of the top quarterbacks in the country.
We got time for one more on Zoom. Joe Reedy from the Associated Press.
Hey, Chip, just with working with this offense for the past year, when was the point where you felt like you were really comfortable with this group and everything was kind of operating how you wanted it?
That's always a work in progress. I think in some games you're like, that was, we were really productive and really efficient in terms of what we did. And then other games, you come out of the game and say, hey, we left some things out on the field or we didn't do what we thought we could do against this team. So that's part of the process. But I think we really approach it on a week-to-week basis. We don't kind of look at it and say, hey, I think we've arrived, because I think each week is totally different. So, there's been some games where I think we've been really, really happy with what we've done. There's been a few games where we know we got to be better. So, our job is to put those guys in position to make plays and then let them go play. So, we got a great group from that standpoint. That is a joy to coach because of how they approach every single day here. So, we're excited about the next opportunity that we get with these guys.
And then just what's it been like just, being an offensive coordinator after many years of being a head coach? Has it been like you thought it would go?
Yeah, it's been a lot more football and a lot less overall meetings, I think, that a head coach has to do. But I think any head coach would share with you that part of it. It's sometimes, I think, as a head coach, you wear a lot of different hats. Obviously, as a coordinator and just coaching the quarterbacks, it's a little bit different. So it's been fun. It's been really enjoyed being back in the meeting room with players on a day-to-day basis. As a head coach, you bounce around to different meeting rooms, but as the coordinator, you're with the quarterbacks all the time. So I really have enjoyed that aspect of it.
Got time for a few more questions here. Tom Moore, Buckeye Huddle.
Chip, we've seen teams kind of bracket Jeremiah at times. As a play caller, how does that maybe open things up for you in other areas of the field? And how is that, is that like an underappreciated part of his game that he's maybe having an impact even when he's not getting the ball?
Yeah, he obviously has an impact every time he's on the field. But I think it's really the quarterback being able to discern that. Are they bracketing him on this play and not bracketing him on that play, and understanding, do we go to option 2 or option 3? If maybe JJ was option 1 and they are doubling him, then hopefully that means someone else, is going to be open. So it's really Will being able to process that post snap from how teams are deploying him. But I think Will's done a nice job with that.
And having a quarterback like Will and going up against a quarterback like Dylan, this is obviously 2 real veteran quarterbacks. You've had young quarterbacks somewhat recently as well. Where does that show up the most? Is that during the week that you can just kind of zip through stuff because it's, I've seen it, or does that show up more on game day? Where do you see the biggest impact from having veteran quarterback?
I think in both, and I think a lot of times with Will, specifically this year, like he sits in on our game plan meetings with us and talk to him about, hey, we kind of like this in this situation. What do you feel like? Hey, he'll give. He doesn't always agree. So hey, I kind of like this. So, bounce ideas off of him because he's played a lot of football and has a lot of experience. So, that's enjoyable when you have an older quarterback. Sometimes when you have a younger guy, they don't have the wealth of experience to be able to share with, I kind of like this, because they haven't done it. They just lack the experience. They don't lack the talent. They just lack the experience. So having a veteran quarterback like that's played a lot of snaps, and there's things that will say, hey, we're looking to do this. Oh, I did that. That was a 2-point play for us a couple years ago. So I kind of like that operation. So, having that experience, I think, is huge when it comes to quarterback spot. And I'm sure Dan will tell you the same thing about having Dylan over there. I think he's got 60 some odd starts. So, that experience can't hurt you.
Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Chip, you coached a long time. You've seen great players coaching the NFL. Have you ever seen anyone as good, as young as Jeremiah?
As young? No, not that maturity level, that approach, those physical skills as a young player, as a freshman. I've not seen anybody like Jeremiah, no.
And now you guys wrote him last game. You're undoubtedly going to do it throughout the playoff. What makes you so confident and built for that?
I think the one thing about Jeremiah is just his consistency to practice itself. He practices every day. Very rarely has he missed anything. I think his durability over the course of time, we've played 14 games now or 13 games now, and he's been there every day. Some other guys have had an ankle, had a knee, had something that would keep him out, not for the entire game, but during the course of a week, maybe miss a Tuesday, miss a Wednesday. The one thing about JJ is he's out there every day, and I think he really enjoys practicing. He really enjoys playing. I think the kid loves football, which is awesome to see. So I think he's built for it. And you look at him physically, I think he can handle the workload.
Even after Northwestern, when his ankle got twisted, he didn't miss any practice after that?
No. I think, everybody was concerned after that, but when because we're off, we run around on Sundays, but we're off on Mondays. But when we got back to Tuesday, he was back out there running around.
And we'll close things out with Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
Chip, I think the Tennessee game was the most maybe you guys had moved Jeremiah around. It was his highest percentage of snaps, I believe, on the season. I know a lot of what you guys do is opponent specific, but how much of moving him around was, dictated by just how teams have defended him, and what does it afford you, I guess, when you can, not always have him in the same spot every time?
I think we did it early. We did a little bit against Nebraska, had him inside and did some different things against. He caught a post right down the middle against Nebraska in some of those situations. So, again, most of it's game plan specific in terms of how our defenses that we're facing trying to defend us and what puts us in a situation to make plays. So that'll really depend on who you're playing and how they kind of approach it more than, hey, this week let's just try this. We're not there's not anything we're just trying. It's all based upon our evaluation of however many games they played and how they deploy their defense and their spacing to how we're going to deploy our offense and try to space them out.
And his, Jeremiah has such a physical presence, and I know he's really wowed a lot of people with some of the one-handed catches he's made. But when you guys have gotten him the ball kind of in space, his ability after the catch really stands out, and to the point where maybe it's perhaps underrated. How would you evaluate his ability?
I don't think anything about JJ's underrated.
He was not the freshman of the year. He wasn't the freshman of the year.
He wasn't?
No.
They have that?
Yeah. He didn't win.
He didn't win it?
No.
Who won it?
Colin Simmons down in Texas.
Is he? Oh, the linebacker?
Yeah.
He's a good player.
But
I didn't have a vote. Kid's a good player, though. I'm telling you, the kid from Texas is a football player.
But JJ after the catch, like, is that, I guess maybe the better answer, is that something you want to try to unlock a little bit more as you move forward here in the postseason, just, letting him use his speed to run away from
Yeah, I mean, JJ, I think he ran a reverse against Michigan State for a touchdown. He caught a short pass against Western Michigan and just ran away from everybody. I think, obviously, he's not just throw the ball up and have him go get it. He can do a lot of different things, and that's what makes him a complete football player. So, he can take short passes and turn them into runs after catches and can make some damage that way, but he can also beat you over the top. I think the one thing that may be underrated is I think he's a really good blocker. And I think he's done a really good job on perimeter runs in terms of being able to lock up DBs and get his hands on him because he is such a big guy. But he takes a lot of pride in that too. That's the one thing that's always so good about JJ is that there's nothing that he's not willing to do to help us win. So if it may be a key block in a certain situation, or it may be catching a short pass and running with it, or it may be, catching the ball over the top, those highlight type catches that he's made, it's that he's the complete package. So, we're fortunate to have him.
Coach, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, guys.